The Bamboos and I Got Burned on afternoons here on ABC Local Radio Queensland. And what do you know about data mining? It's basically, from my understanding of it, is that it's online agencies that track what you search for on the internet and then they bombard you with ads. But there's one thing that was mentioned just recently at an education conference in Sydney, which was that children's internet access at school could be mined and that advertising could target them when they leave their school gates. And someone who knows a little bit about data mining is Matt Kelly from Just Media Design. He's a social media and internet privacy specialist who's just returned to Queensland after working in Silicon Valley in the United States. Matt, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Must be good to be home.
It is always good to be home. I love being back. It's like this weather can't be beaten.
Now, what is data mining? What I've said in that it's about people tracking what you click on, what you're searching?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think that's half the battle is what happens online. But data mining as a concept has happened for many, many years. And really at its core, it's tracking a large user base or a large data set, a group of data points, and then applying sort of a thought process to it to determine patterns and determine tracks and trends in the data to make decisions. So businesses actually use data mining all the time, and it's not all bad. It's not all doom and gloom, because business actually uses it to improve their businesses and to make their businesses more relevant for customers. So there's this concept of data mining for online, and when search engines are tracking us, it's important for us to be paying attention to, but it's also not all bad. And that's what's really important to understand, is that there's a lot to this that we can all sort of take advantage from.
So is it a little bit scary that what your child does at school, they might be gathering that information?
Right. It is a little bit scary. So, I mean, there is this news that's come out last week that is at a privacy conference in Sydney that it came out that schools are using the Google Apps education program. And what that means at its core is that Google provide infrastructure to schools to supply email, Google Documents to all the students within the school. And Google have actually come out publicly and said, we don't advertise to students in the school. A privacy expert from the US came out and said that's one thing, but Google are still tracking information. They're still building this database around each student, and they can use that to market to students down the track. So there is a level of concern there, but again, I have to sort of point out that when we use Google accounts as adults and not in the school grounds, we're actually being tracked everywhere online. And that's at its core, it's something that we sort of all need to be aware of. And it's not about beating it, it's about managing it and knowing how it works and where all of these data points hit us personally.
Well, how can you manage it?
Right. So it's funny, with Google specifically, there's a whole range of different ways of looking at this. At an entry point, it's if you have a Gmail account, a YouTube account, and you log into your account, and then you go and browse the web. You could be on any different facet of the internet. Google can actually track that. So between visits to their site, they're watching what you do, and they're starting to build out who they think you are. So you've actually got a dashboard that you can log into within Google and view what they know about you. Some of it is what they know about you from a Google profile that you've set up. Other things that they know about you is sort of what they've hypothesized based on your search browsing and your search history. So in this situation, I actually logged into mine today just to see what they know. And they know that I'm a male. They know my rough age bracket. And they have basically a list of my interests. And it's all just based on the things that I've searched, not just in Google Chrome, but in any browser amongst searching online. So for me, it was interesting. And what you can actually do is go in there and actually remove data points. So you can say, I don't like that Google knows this about me. I don't like they know that. And actually delete those things along the way. So again, for parents looking at their kids and knowing that their kids, this data is actually being tracked about them, which it is, you can log into this dashboard anywhere with your children and show them what Google knows, because that's the most important part. The really scary part about this, and the reason why this has come up in a big way, is that if as a child you're at school or you're at home and you're logged into your school account and you search for something you shouldn't, something that might be a bit explicit, what actually can end up happening there is that Google will track that you as a user have searched for that term, and therefore in the future you're interested in that term, and they'll actually promote material that they really shouldn't be to you based on that. And that's where the conversation comes up. If a young child searches something they shouldn't, then that sort of content will follow them through the internet.
Matt, you've come back from Silicon Valley. What is it like to work there?
It's amazing. It's amazing. I've always been interested in the technology industry, and I'm a marketer at my core, and you know, in all aspects of my being, I love technology. And I moved to Silicon Valley just over a year ago, and I worked within a startup incubator over there, and worked at the core of a brand new social network that's coming out very soon. And it's a fascinating environment. It's fast paced, it's interesting, and it's quite exciting to be on the forefront of it. Now, in saying that, the Brisbane startup scene, the technology scene in Brisbane is actually really growing. And that's super exciting for me to come back to Brisbane and see the way that that it's just this little like rumblings of a bigger movement. And it's great to see.
And you don't hear a lot about that. I mean, we always hear about the startups in Berlin and what's happening in Europe, but never anything on our own doorstep.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It still is a small scene. There's a few like technology news sites that are starting to pick up some steam, and that's great because it just starts to tell the story. And when you hear about, there's Startup Weekend in Brisbane, and there's all of these little incubators and idea labs around, co-working spaces, they all start to grow. And as they grow, I mean, ultimately these companies, as they start to build investment and start to make revenue, that creates jobs in Brisbane that are really exciting for us. So that's exciting for me personally to be part of the movement.
Matt, thank you so much for coming in, and welcome back to Brisbane. That was Matt Kelly, social media and privacy specialist who's just returned from working in the Silicon Valley and also from Just Media Design.
The Hot Ticket is your access all areas pass to the world of entertainment and the arts.
Music costs money.